And what's up? What's up? Welcome in Monday edition of GC Live. I'm Wes Mitchell. He is Chris Clark coming at you at 1 o'clock here in the afternoon. Still, I would say, focusing in on exactly what time we're going to do the show moving forward and hope to sort of lock down an official time for that where you guys can get in a little bit of a routine. But still wanted to make sure we knocked out a show today. And obviously, here we are. We're going to do it. Of course, GC Live brought to you by our good buddy Clint Hammond of Mortgage Network. He is our presenting sponsor. Check him out, mortgagenetwork.com/Clint-Hammond. And you can check him out. Give him a call, 803-771-6933, or just hit him up, chammond@mortgagenetwork.com. Outstanding time to buy a house, outstanding time to refinance your house. Interest rates have honestly never been lower. So just give Clint a shout. Tell him that Gamecock Central sent you, and he'll be sure to take care of you. Appreciate Clint being our presenting sponsor here on the show. Chris, do we dare say things have finally settled in just a little bit?
Dude, I was just thinking about that. I thought you may go in that direction. I was telling somebody on the phone earlier because I had time to make a phone call that wasn't searching for some type of information that, we have just been sort of like treading water, trying to keep our heads above water. And now I was actually able to, my desk is clean. I've been able to catch up on some stuff. I'm going through cleaning out contacts. I mean, I'm doing like some housekeeping stuff today for work as opposed to just drowning today. So that's been really different, but it has settled a little bit. And now it's we're just shifting gears a little bit, I would say, with what we're doing right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And really, Chris, hope that we can start to maybe have some guests here on the show and sort of shift gears from talking about exactly what's happening, which it's been easy to do the show, honestly, as far as not easy as far as the time available, but easy as far as content, because there's been something new pretty much every day, whether it's been a coach being hired or a coach leaving, honestly, for the last year, it feels like, but really the last couple of months. So appreciate everybody hanging in there with us. Appreciate everybody joining us. I see some of the degenerates are here. I know by the little bit of a time change, hopefully still some people see that we're live and can hop on and join us, and definitely want to take your questions. Maybe a little bit shorter of a show today, but still wanted to make sure we knocked it out. Dude, there is a ongoing trend of South Carolina former Gamecocks making the Super Bowl every single year. I think this is the 9th in a row, maybe, that South Carolina had somebody in. You have Rashad Fenton making it again, second straight year. He had an interception yesterday off a tip ball. Chris Lamons was activated off of the practice squad, so he was able to participate in the AFC Championship. You got old Ryan Suckup, who's been in the league now for like 17 years, it feels like, kicking the ball very well. As always, he's turned into just a consistent pro. Glad he's able to, get out there and make it to the big dance. And then Kobe Smith, former Gamecock, who I think they missed Kobe Smith this past season about as much as anybody on that defense, honestly, just being a steady inside presence for the defensive line. He is on the practice squad for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Buccaneers who make it to the Super Bowl in year one of the Tom Brady era in Tampa. Did you get to watch the games last night, man?
Yeah, man. I caught most of both of them, shockingly. Another sign that things slowed down a little bit for us. Don't take that to me. I hope people don't start asking us, oh, what do y'all must not have anything going on right now, because it's going to drive me insane. But no, I was able to actually take some time, sit down, watch a little football yesterday. So that was really good. 2 really good games. Didn't watch as much of the second one. It did obviously get a little bit away from Buffalo, but the early one was excellent. Caught a few minutes of the other one.
Yeah, so obviously some Gamecocks make it again, as I said. And Fenton and that Chiefs defense, he's managed to hang around and get into the league and stick in the league a little bit. And I was actually surprised at I think of the Chiefs as being an offensive oriented team, obviously, and their defense I thought played very, very well against the Bills and sort of kept the Bills offense from getting going for most of that game. And they played great red zone defense. I thought was the difference maker in that game for the Chiefs, but very happy for those guys who are getting to go. And it's been a trend. Like I said, it seems like you're having guys in all three major sports really do well in the playoffs as far as making it to, you look a couple of years ago, Jackie Bradley Jr., you look at South Carolina had a World Series MVP in Steve Pierce. You have, guy in the NBA, you had, seems like there was a former Gamecock that went far this year as well. So you've had guys do extremely well at the professional level. And, I think that's good for South Carolina athletics. Obviously, fans want to see some wins as far as the football program goes, but it is something that we consistently see South Carolina push as far as on their social media for recruiting purposes.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's something that they're going to push. I mean, any angle, any perceived edge, you're going to push. And it's been really funny, Wes, and sort of interesting to see even fans of some particular schools or some rival schools definitely sometimes push back against those things. I saw some people got a little irritated that South Carolina put out a graphic mentioning that, of like, well, are we stooping to this level or whatever? But look, guys, I mean, you sell your job as a program and your social media, you're supposed to use it as a program to try to tout your program. And so no matter when it happened or which coaches or what the sort of era was, I mean, you tout what you can tout, right? So you tout a new coaching staff, you tout facilities, academic accomplishments. Yes, the Super Bowl thing. I mean, was that under Shane Beamer or something? No, it wasn't. But it does illustrate to people, hey, you can go to South Carolina, you can go make it to the pros, you can go play in the Super Bowl. Because some people on the recruiting trail may say you can't go do that if you go to South Carolina. You have to go to this school or that school. We know that's not true. So that's something that they're going to tout. Another example, Steve Sarkisian, when he got to Texas, I think Texas put out a graphic, congratulating Devontae Smith basically for winning the Heisman and because of the Sark connection. So people were saying, congratulations, Texas, for your Heisman Trophy winner, things like that. But look, this is what happens. And, if you're a program, if you run social for a program, you're going to tout the accomplishments that are related to said program for recruiting purposes. That's what, for these schools, that's what social media is all about.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Chris, you kind of have to. And really, if somebody has a problem with it, you just sort of have to ignore them, because I think, honestly, if every program would be doing that, I think that you look, and if you're Texas and your guy is calling plays on the national championship, in the national championship game, and the announcers are talking about how great, how great the offense looks and stuff like that. I mean, did Texas win the title? Obviously not. But are you going to point it out? Hey, our this guy we're bringing in is outstanding. As far as an offensive mind goes, as far as the offense he's put together at Alabama, yes, because you want people to think, oh, that can be recreated at your school. So, yes, it can be annoying. I think can be very annoying for opposing fans, but
right,
you got to think your school would be doing the same thing. I think so. I don't have an issue with any of that stuff, even though it does get taken probably a little bit far, but that's recruiting, man. It's all sales, honestly, and you're anything you can sell for your program. you certainly are going to do it. Let's hit the chat here quickly. Craig, I saw something about that on Twitter that Sandarius Stormwell had a loss in his family. It looked like, it was his brother maybe. So certainly have Sandarius. And then, looks like Wade, Craig, and John all have gone through something similar in the last year. So definitely thoughts and prayers sent to all of you that have gone through that, man. I know it's tough, and I feel like I know y'all because I haven't even met y'all in person. So certainly let us know if we can do anything for y'all there. Chris, as far as what's going on in Gamecock Nation right now, really hard to believe that the next signing day is a week from Wednesday. And, I think that the big storyline there for South Carolina right now, and probably a lot of schools really, is just the lack of numbers available. And right now, I think, there's been some discussion about what the actual number is. I think we're accurate in saying that it's 5. And then if you take the St. Francis kids, add the St. Francis kids to the mix, that cuts it down to 3. Not really, you look, so on Wednesday, South Carolina will sign Colby Fields, who basically is committed but is not signed yet. They'll officially announce and sign TJ Sanders. And then, if I remember correctly, Isaiah Norris, actually, they announced him after he committed, even though he committed later in the process. So he had technically already signed. So that won't be a new signee on next Wednesday as well. Chris, I'm guessing they'll announce the transfers that have joined the program since, just almost as like pomp and circumstance, basically, like just for show. Beamer's already talked about them in a press conference setting, but I'm guessing they'll announce those guys. And then really, you literally only have space to add five guys, and 2 of those would be potentially the St. Francis guys.
Yeah, and then beyond that, the question becomes, okay, does South Carolina hold a spot or 2, or whatever? Is it 1 spot? Do they hold all 3? I mean, we don't really know yet. It seems like as we get with that being like you said, a week from Wednesday, they're probably going to be in position to where they can sign another player and another couple players on signing day, but we don't know for sure. I mean, Wes, is there one guy out there that you say out of uncommitted targets, right, or out of a transfer target that may be in the portal, South Carolina is 100% going to sign this guy a week from Wednesday? I mean, I can't think of one. Now, are there some possibilities? Yes, there's some possibilities. You look at a couple of junior college linebackers, maybe a portal guy pops up. Look at a wide receiver like Jordan Mosley out of Alabama. I mean, there are some possibilities, but we know that with the 3 spots left, South Carolina is going to be really selective. Obviously, they have some priorities that they want to hit, and then you may be looking at a situation, depending on how things go, where it's best available player. But one thing you got to consider, man, is the transfer portal has obviously been big for South Carolina. 5 guys, I guess, out of the portal that are already enrolled back in January or earlier this month in January to be able to go through spring practice. And so the thing about the portal is it may not necessarily end. I mean, there may be some guys that go in it today. There may be some guys that go in it 2 weeks from now, maybe some guys after spring practice. So for South Carolina, do you want to keep yourself flexible? Do you want to not lock in all your spots? Do you want to have a spot or 2 to play with just to see what happens later? That is possible. And maybe that happens by virtue of South Carolina just saying, we sort of like this guy from junior college or high school, but we'd really like to save these spots. Maybe they miss on a guy or 2 down the stretch, and it opens up like that, just almost by a happy accident, to steal a Bob Ross term. So I don't know. exactly yet how it's going to play out, man. And so there is some intrigue sort of going into these next 10 days or so.
T wants to know, will all of our 25 spots be taken, and we'll have to use 2022 slots for summer transfers? Yeah, that's a very real possibility, T. Now, my understanding, Chris, is that now part of this, one of the, I would say, one of the things you have to do, or one of the qualifications, requirements, I should say, to count them forward, is that they're a non-recruited athlete. And some of that is actually that you don't take an official visit. Well, right now, there haven't been any official visits, so you don't really have to worry about that requirement. Now, assuming recruiting gets turned back on at some point,
yep.
In-person visits, maybe that does become a factor in the spring and in the summer. But if you're going to push guys forward, doesn't it have to be all the way to August, right? Like you have to wait for the guy to enroll in August, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's because of the start of that certain semester and sort of when they get on the books, so that's what we've seen. The best recent example of it, Kai Kroger and Mitch Jeter, who were both like in the 2020 class, but were counted forward to 21. They're two of the four guys that count from the current roster or last year's roster to the 2021 class. And so what you saw them do is they committed to South Carolina, right? But they didn't sign at that time. They didn't take an official visit. The coaches didn't go visit them on the road. As you said, Wes, you can't do either of those things right now anyways. And then they went ahead and they just went on scholarship in August. I think that's the technical part of the rule, is that they can't go on scholarship until the fall semester. I think technically they could arrive earlier if they wanted to on campus, but they don't go on scholarship until, August, when you're getting into preseason camp, when fall classes start on campus. And that's called the blue shirt rule. It's another, you got gray shirt, red shirt, blue shirt. That is the blue shirt rule. And it's one of the remaining ways that you can sometimes skirt around those rules. Now, it can be a little hard to do. You're not going to be out here blue shirting 5-star guys typically, because you're going to need to get them in on an official visit. You're going to need to have gone and visited them on the road and have that face-to-face contact. So it's for certain circumstances and situations in recruiting.
Yeah, well, I think what we see it most applicable would be, like we talked about, with the specialists, as you said, guys that aren't necessarily, as highly recruited, or you can see it with transfers just because, their process is taking place late. Maybe there's a transfer after the spring and you could possibly get away with asking them to wait a little bit. But technically I think the kickers, for them to go ahead and be on campus, they technically had to come in as walk-ons, and then so they technically were walk-ons in the middle of the summer, and then once the semester starts, you put them on scholarship. They still count as your initial counter because it's within 2 years, but you can count them for your 2022 class as opposed to your 2021 class. In this case, in their case, last year, it was counting towards the 21 class as opposed to the 2020 class. So that's sort of how that would work. Now, it can hurt you. It's more ideal. For one, you ultimately have to spend that scholarship anyway, so you're hurting yourself in this instance for the 2022 class, taking away a spot. Also, you may have one school saying, if everything else is equal, and a school has a scholarship versus maybe South Carolina doesn't, the other school may say, hey, man, you can come right now.
Yep.
Go ahead, get in our strength and conditioning program, start learning our offense or defense, and start getting settled in. If you're South Carolina and you don't have one, and you're saying, hey, you got to wait till August, or hey, you got to pay your way for the first month, it's a disadvantage.
Yeah, it can be, and that's why I was alluding to earlier. You're not going to be doing this for these big time prospects that you're beating a bunch of schools on, the types of guys that you're going to need to have more of than not, right? But for specialists, for transfers, for certain guys that maybe go under the radar a little bit, it can happen. You look at South Carolina's situations last year, 2 specialists, right? Then you had Prentice, who originally walked on as a transfer, and was a guy that certainly contributed to the team last year, and then Jalen Brooks, who also transferred later, before the season started. So those were, a few different situations. You're not going to see this apply to a whole lot of guys, but it's a rule that can be helpful. But also you got to remember that, those 4 slots are 4 slots that Shane Beamer and his staff do not have to play with in this class because of them having to count somewhere, and they counted to this class.
I mean, I think ultimately, we've talked about this. Ultimately, you want to get away from that, I think, in an ideal world. Now, right now, you may be forced to do it, and you need all hands on deck. Anybody that can help you, you almost have to bring them in. But ultimately, you want to bring in a class of the current class that's full, and the current class for that given year, I should say. And you want it to be mostly high school guys, I think. You'd love to have a class of 25 where you got 21, 22, maybe high school kids, and then maybe 3 or 4 transfers or JUCOs or just people to help fill out the roster in a perfect world, I think, because you keep pushing them forward, you're always going to be short, on scholarships that following year. And we see, dude, they always fill up fast, no matter how small a class is. When it's we see these classes fill up at different rates, but even when a class looks small early on, there's always that little stretch where South Carolina gets 5, 6, 7 guys pretty quickly in a row, and then that's a big portion of your class, so that they do fill up pretty quick. John asked if Jordan Birch and Marshawn Lloyd are locked up. Yes, Chris, I would say that's not even really something that we've had to track much of. I mean, Marshawn Lloyd, we've both heard independently for some time now. He's locked in. He's one of the team leaders, actually. Going to be a huge part of this offense next year. And then I think that was only confirmed by the fact that he's out here recruiting Debo Williams to come join him. Jordan Birch, the fact that Mike Peterson remained on staff, the guy who I never thought got enough credit for his job recruiting Jordan Birch. Mike Peterson is going to remain with the edge players, which means he'll remain Jordan Birch's coach, and Eric Kimry being added to the staff as well. I think all those things lead to Jordan Birch and Marshawn Lloyd definitely remaining at South Carolina.
Yeah, totally agree. I think you broke it down quite well. And I mean, Marshawn Lloyd's just a different type of dude. I mean, he could have in the transition entered the portal and called up about anyone and had a spot instantly, but he just, that's just not who he is. And he's stuck through it. Seems extremely happy. Like you said, one of the leaders recruiting Debo Williams, who he has ties to from Delaware. The Jordan Birch, I mean, if Mike Peterson had gone somewhere else, we might have attracted a little bit more just because of that connection there. But there were never any serious indications that he was thinking about leaving. He's happy. He's close to some of the younger D linemen on the team, Tonka Hemingway, for instance. I mean, he's not technically from Columbia, but has lived here for a few years, from Florence originally. From Columbia, still has family here, still has family in the States. So everything added up and made sense for him to stay, and things seem to be going just fine with both of those guys.
Let's and I know Chris has got to do a 107.5 segment at 1:30. So if y'all want to continue to hear Chris's thoughts, tune in to 107.5 here, and we'll give them a plug, I guess, here shortly. That's part of the reason why we're having to cut it a little bit short, but we wanted to make sure to do a show. Chris, I know you had a little quick update on Bam Scott. He's one of these linebackers. I mean, really, as far as for Wednesday, I don't know, man. There's like 5, 6 or so. There's not a ton of guys we're even closely tracking moving forward. But Bam Scott, great name for a linebacker, a JUCO kid, one of those guys that we are tracking. What's your latest you're hearing on him?
Yeah, so he's down to sort of a final three. It looks like Mississippi State, West Virginia, South Carolina, the three schools that have been in the mix there. Don't really have a great sense of where it may go. He says there's no leader. For South Carolina's part, again, will the numbers play into it? We don't, right as of this moment, have a great idea of, hey, South Carolina is definitely going full bore here. I mean, that could be, or it could not be. We're not quite sure about that yet. They also have Joko Willis, another JUCO linebacker on the board. As you said, Wes, spots project to be really limited. So he's someone that we're still going to monitor, and he is planning on signing on the 3rd. So we'll just have to see, where things go the next 10 days or so, and hope to get more information on that as the day approaches.
Yep. So, I would say him, Joko Willis, Juwan Gaston. That's one there's been some movement. I think safe to say South Carolina had or has been the leader. The Auburn offer makes it more interesting. Something to track there, I think, with even though it's a late offer, how much is Auburn pushing? How bad do they want him? What are their numbers like? Everybody's going to be in a numbers crunch. Now, this is a kid, I think you look back, actually, Drew Hughes, who left, probably is as tied in as far as getting South Carolina involved here as anyone, because Juwan Gaston is from Drew Hughes' hometown, I think, and that was when they were in the middle of transitioning from one staff to another, and Drew Hughes was doing a lot of recruiting for South Carolina as far as finding guys that were out there. And Gaston is someone South Carolina jumped on. Chris, I think, was very excited about the offer, very interested in the program. We'll see what the Auburn factor is here with him moving forward. In general, tough to land guys from that state if Auburn wants them. But we'll see, because I do think he sort of maybe fits the mold. Again, we'll see where he is on South Carolina's board. We don't know, but he is a high school guy. He is a DB. I've sort of been told DB, if you take the St. Francis guys and go ahead and put them in the mix, maybe DB, linebacker, and maybe best available potentially, are where you'd maybe look for those final 3 spots, either now or, as we said, later on.
Yeah, exactly. And, he does certainly fit the bill. Gaston does, of guy who can help you long-term, but could also help you short-term. And they need both, defensive back. They need more numbers there. They need some more talent. They also need some guys that can help in the short term. And Gaston, 11 special teams touchdowns last year, Wes? So
in one season.
So really productive there, but also, a talented player, defensive back. So could help South Carolina in a couple areas. So we'll see where that one goes as well, leading up to Wednesday. But South Carolina, from all indications, still very much in the race there.
No doubt. All right, Chris, we're going to let you get out of here, man. Short show here today, but we're working on. We'll have a guest, I think, on Wednesday. We'll be working on that. Let's see. Patrick, real quick, want to know if the analyst positions, Drew Hughes' replacement, will be announced. I think that could be coming pretty soon. I think there's probably some movement there. I think you'd probably want to keep an eye on that here pretty soon. Analyst stuff, I'm not sure exactly, but certainly as far as Drew Hughes' replacement goes, I think you could see that pretty soon. All right, y'all. Appreciate y'all joining in a little bit shorter show here. We'll be back on Wednesday. Hopefully we'll have a guest on the show. For Chris, I'm Wes. Hope y'all have a great day, and we'll see you then.